I was moved to a little town in the country. I was thrown away due to my lack of competence. I had that thought. The person who contacted me was a stunning supervisor. I'm Ted, and I'm 28. I was transferred from the head office of the welfare equipment manufacturing company where I worked to this small rural hamlet. I joined this company because I wanted to help someone. Although I was committed to creating welfare equipment, it appears that I was incompetent when I was thrown away. There was a welcoming vibe as soon as I walked into the office, which was smaller than the headquarters. You're Ted H. then. It's good to meet you. I'm Sarah, and I've been given the task of helping you until you adjust. If there is anything you don't understand, don't hesitate to ask. The 30-year-old Sarah calmly introduced herself. I have her as my mentor at this branch. How can I tell how old she is? I learned this from an older, more seasoned clerk who has worked at this branch for a long time. Despite her severe exterior, she is a nice and diligent individual who is reliable. I've never heard any gossip regarding her personal life, despite the fact that she is 30 years old. She's really a nice person, the cashier who told me this said, observing Sarah with gentle eyes. You know what? Is my face covered in something? She is indeed incredibly attractive. Sarah spoke to me as I was thinking these things, looking a little irritated. No, I hurriedly answered, it's nothing. She simply said, I see, and left to take care of a guest. I reviewed the paperwork that Sarah had given me, making sure I remembered the details of the factory I would be visiting later. When I worked at the headquarters, I never visited the manufacturing plant. I'm already anxious because this is my first factory tour since I started working for the company. I worked on project proposals to send to headquarters after completing the new tasks at the branch. I was desperate to go back into product development. To ensure that I was happy with my work, I stayed late every day, but not to the point that it got in the way of my everyday responsibilities. I'd arrived home late today as well and quickly got food. Sometimes I should prepare meals for myself. I grumbled that I needed to start cooking and better controlling my diet as I looked at my kitchen, which I hardly used. I grabbed for my bag after eating and showering. I took out the paperwork for the customer I would be seeing tomorrow. I ingrained the factory's ideology and the characteristics of the goods they handle into my mind after reading about them. It's amazing. Their concern for each and every substance they utilize is evident to me. I was startled and intrigued by the kind of materials included in the factory's brochure because of their number and thorough quality specifications. I pondered what sort of procedure the goods produced in this plant must go through in order to be finished. The morning of the external visit day follows. The tension of the new surroundings seems to be having an impact on my physique on this particular day. Good morning, Ted. You don't look very good. Are you all right? Sarah, who is usually very strict, looks at me with worry and seems anxious. I apologize. I didn't want to worry her, so I courageously said, I'm fine. Let's move forward. However, Sarah's expression remained worried. I hastily finished getting ready for the visit and rushed out of there so as not to upset her. If you start to feel worse, let me know. She must have realized I wasn't feeling well. I couldn't help but smile as she placed some of the company's medication in my suitcase. She included a lot of Band-Aids in there, so it wasn't just about observing her compassionate side. When am I going to use those? We arrived at the production factory and exchanged greetings while I was grinning at her natural side. We were given a tour of the plant by the very kind plant manager. Even for a novice like myself, it was clear that I was embarrassed to be witnessing the production process for the first time. There were many processes in the production process that needed a human touch, even if machines played a major role. The quantity of individuals involved, from planning to manufacture, impressed me. Isn't it a breathtaking sight? Did you know that producing a product and releasing it onto the market isn't an easy undertaking? Yes, I did. When I initially saw the production process, I was blown away. Sarah talked to me on the way back and said that since it was a branch office, there were things that could be done. She was talking quite deeply. Being a branch office, there are things we can do. For instance, as I listened to her, my gaze strayed to the sidewalk across from me. Charlie. One of the dogs on the other side of the crosswalk was strikingly similar to Charlie, my family's cherished dog who had just died. Are you listening, Ted? The light is red. Before I realized it, I was running a red light after the dog. Perhaps I didn't notice the light had gone red since I wasn't feeling well. Sarah's voice sounded frantic at that point, and as I turned to see what was happening, I heard a blaring siren. The next thing I knew, Sarah had rushed ahead of me and was pushing me. The next thing I knew, Sarah was down in the middle of the crossing, and I was laying in the middle of the road. A distressed motorist hurried to Sarah while phoning for assistance. In the midst of the cacophonous surroundings and my hazy consciousness, I realized that Sarah had been struck by the vehicle. I lost my memories at that point. When I awoke the next morning, I was in a hospital and told by a nurse who had come to change my IV that I had been in an accident and that my injuries were minimal. I was also receiving an IV for tiredness. How was the woman who assisted me doing? I was concerned about Sarah's disappearance. Sarah had been hit, not me, at that point. I could not get the picture of her falling to the ground out of my head. I was getting nervous because she wasn't here, but I kept telling myself she must be okay. The unfriendly nurse just replied she was okay and walked away. Knowing she was secure at least gave me a sense of relief. I followed instructions and went to the room Sarah was in after my IV was completed. This is Ted, Sarah. When I knocked and yelled, a woman who resembled Sarah appeared. Who might you be? She inquired, startled by a severe tone. Sarah assisted me from inside the room as I was struggling to think of how to react. Mia, let him go. He works with me. After saying that, the hesitant woman gave me permission to enter and went off to complete her admissions process. My first words were, Sarah, I'm really sorry, and I apologize for hurting her. Sarah forgiven me without placing blame on me, even though I constantly apologized and bent my head. Ted, I'm relieved you're safe. You don't typically cross at a red signal. Did you spot a familiar face? Sarah's arm was shattered, and one leg was bruised. Thankfully, she didn't sustain a serious injury to her head, and she soon regained consciousness. She was using her laptop despite her condition. When I heard her inquiry, my face became hazy. I ran after a dog that looked exactly like my deceased pet. Since I've never been good at lying, I gave her the truth even though I worried she could become upset for no apparent reason. Even though the light was red, I ran after a dog that looked exactly like my recently deceased pet. When I apologized for the second time, I was prepared for a reprimand, but she spoke to me again in a kind tone. That's what transpired. It must have been difficult. Her unexpected remarks caused my eyes to widen. If she thought I was playing around and reprimanded me for nearly getting into an accident while chasing a dog, it wouldn't be unreasonable. I'd assumed that was the case, but Sarah abruptly stopped typing on her computer and turned to face me, which caused my heart to begin beating rapidly. I finished the paperwork. Her younger sister, who was just returning, gave me a look that seemed astonished that I was still there. She then abruptly turned back to Sarah and said that she couldn't visit every day due to her job's demands. After the discharge, she wanted to help, but it would be challenging to do so every day. There's no need to worry, Sarah answered with a grin, but I began to worry as well, considering the difficulties she must be having attempting to lead a normal life while confined by her disabilities, knowing that I was the cause of everything. Before I knew it, I was volunteering to help. May I come and assist with daily tasks if it's not too much trouble? Her younger sister was the first to respond to my unexpected proposal. There would undoubtedly be an issue. An unidentified man entering and leaving my sister's place is not something I want. She appeared guarded and wary of me. This response, though, was most likely normal. I would undoubtedly respond the same way if I had a sister and found myself in the same circumstance. All I wanted to do was help, but I had to come up with another idea. With this in mind, I was about to take back what I had said when Sarah said something unexpected. Perhaps I should ask Ted for assistance if Mia is busy. In this manner, he can assist with work from home as well. Despite her younger sister's best efforts to halt it, my suggestion was approved when Sarah said just one sentence. She doesn't change her mind once she makes it. It seems that her younger sister began sharing tasks with me after Steaming resigned. She took control of the laundry, coming in once a week on rotation, and I would assist with the other housework after work because she was still on guard. Every day until the discharge, I would stop by to provide any desired items and report on work. Apparently fiercely protective of her sibling, her younger sister repeatedly reiterated with great emphasis, "If you harbor any inappropriate feelings toward my sister, I will never forgive you." I told Sarah, "Don't worry," and she added, "Thank you for your understanding. I'll try my hardest." Sarah smiled and bowed her head in a friendly gesture, but her younger sister, still cautious, kept glaring at me. After work every day after that, I went to the hospital. I would gather work documents for Sarah and bring packages from her sister so as not to disrupt her place of employment. After 2 weeks of these days, Sarah was cleared to go. She required therapy for some time even after being released. So I continued to visit her every day after work to make sure she wouldn't experience any difficulties in her day-to-day activities. The only difference was that Sarah's room was used in place of the hospital room. I appreciate everything you've done. Having you cook and clean has been really beneficial because it can be challenging to do it alone. I was initially hesitant to go into a woman's apartment on a daily basis, but I soon adjusted because Sarah seemed to not object at all. Given that I caused the harm, it makes sense. Don't worry about it, really. Even though our talk was informal, I was constantly amazed by her ability to work tirelessly on her computer despite having a disability in her arm. As the visitation days went on, I became aware of something. "Did you fill the tea maker with tea, Ted?" She was clumsy, so I said, "That wasn't me. You made it yourself yesterday." She almost fell over nothing on a number of occasions, and that made me nervous. She would quickly change the TV to a comedy show if it was on and talk enthusiastically about the comedians she suggested. Every now and then she would smile without guard. I was starting to perceive Sarah as someone of the other sex, day by day. Not in an improper manner, of course. The person who was meant to be the trustworthy and competent supervisor appeared lovely and endearing. "Aren't you doing anything with my sister now?" Although my relationship with my younger sister, Mia, who comes over once a week to do laundry, has improved, she still closely monitors me to make sure I'm not slacking. "Don't worry, I'm not brave enough to do that." She is rude, it's true. On occasion, I discovered that Mia and I are of the same age. Even when we disagreed, Sarah would observe us with a satisfied expression, as if she wished we got along. Following a lengthy period of rehabilitation, Sarah resumed her job a few days later. From today, I look forward to working with you again. As she entered the office, coworkers joyfully celebrated Sarah's return by preparing a cake. I've never seen Sarah grin so softly in the midst of the holiday atmosphere in the office. That smile makes my heart race once more, and I question whether it's truly racing. She drew me into the circle to join in the celebration, so I put my hand over my heart and stopped thinking about it. I continue to support Sarah, who hasn't entirely healed, in the company even after that. She has been living a hectic life and gratefully accepted my offer. I continued working after work since I was determined to get back to the headquarters and couldn't give up. I stopped visiting Sarah's house to lend a hand when her younger sister, Mia, was going through a difficult time at work. I used that time to focus on project proposals, saving even my sleep, although feeling a little lonely. Sarah may have seen how I was feeling because one day while I was at work, she pulled me out and claimed to be going to see some clients. Are the process checks not necessary? Not doing anything specific in particular. simply going to clients and striking up a conversation. It was strange that there were no standard procedure checks or proposal submissions. All we have to do today is present our faces. For Sarah, who was productive at her job, simply observing and conversing with the workers at the plant is plenty. This schedule was out of the ordinary. I questioned the purpose of these apparently meaningless outdoor rounds. As work hours drew to a close, the answer remained elusive. I stayed back alone to work on the proposal as usual after seeing colleagues go earlier. "You're working hard, Ted." In the now empty office, I heard Sarah's voice for some reason. "You're not usually here at this hour, Sarah. Mia will be concerned, so you should go early." Saying I should have something, she nearly forced me to eat by handing me a sandwich and a cup of coffee. Before she started eating, Sarah, who also purchased one for herself, struck up a discussion. "I've heard that you worked at headquarters on product development, Ted. They claimed that you were incredibly committed. I was at headquarters at the time, so why was I moved to a branch in the country?" She claims that she questioned higher management directly about the reason because she was too interested. You may think you were transferred because you were incompetent, but that's a big misunderstanding. I stopped eating and turned to face Sarah as she approached, as though she could see right through my heart. "The headquarters wants you to build a production line for the products. My employer at the time told me these things when I was transferred, but I took them to be words of consolation at the time. I considered my move from headquarters to a rural branch to be merely unfortunate. Without saying anything, I simply assumed that and walked out of headquarters. Looking back, I thought I was pretty impolite." Sarah went on to say, "That was just a comforting word I couldn't understand. You have the ability to give things careful thought, Ted. During the time you were assisting me, I sensed that not everyone could. Even the supervisors at headquarters, according to Sarah, appreciated my consideration and believed I ought to be part in the production process. I was aware of the enthusiasm for product development, but we can only improve things by working with the creators. Supporting these individuals is the company's top priority. She showed me that it's not enough to just submit product plans and have them created. They want me to help link the corporation and the makers because of this." I heard that from Sarah. I learned from that talk that my boss's statements to me at the time were truthful. At the same time, I came to the realization that I had missed a lot because I was too wedded to the headquarters title. Had I not visited the branch, I would have been unaware of some realities. You are not incompetent, Ted. There must be a lot of workers just like me. You were anticipated. You were moved in order to better the company's prospects. I was so incompetent that I started crying at her final statement. I was relieved when the tight thread of having to put in a lot of effort was gradually broken. "I'm glad," I said to myself. There was nothing I could do. Sarah rubbed my back tenderly while I sobbed until I stopped. I made the decision to change the way I work from this day on. I began visiting clients more frequently and ceased staying at the office. My consideration has been appreciated by the employer. I want to do everything I can right now to contribute to the creation of better products if that can assist someone, save someone, and be reflected in my job. That's why it's crucial for people who think and those who make to interact and share their thoughts. I was able to establish these new relationships amongst businesses online. But after that, something else changed inside of me. Even though I was leading a fulfilling life and finding meaning at work, I started to feel more and more empty within every day. I had no idea what it was, but I always feel lonely once I get home when I'm by myself. I've spent a lot of time living alone. Does feeling lonely now seem odd? I pondered. But I didn't understand this loneliness until I turned on the television. The dinner I prepared was for two, and the station I had inadvertently switched to was a comedy show. Indeed, I did miss the little moment as I went to assist. I remember eating across from Sarah while chatting casually and watching TV on the couch. I became aware of my emotions when I started searching for signs of Sarah. I then made the decision to get in touch with her and ask if we might meet. We agreed to meet at a chic wine bar close to Sarah's house. Sarah said she loves wine and said she would come right away. While I was hesitating to tell Sarah how I felt, Sarah cheerfully sipped her wine. "Hey, Ted," she replied. "I don't know why, but I feel lonely when I'm by myself in my room. I search for signs of your presence and find myself yearning to see you. I like you then." I told her because I wanted to. Sarah was the one who surprised me by telling me how she felt. The fact that we felt the same way also surprised me, and I couldn't help but enlarge my eyes. "I feel the same way, Sarah. While searching for signs of you, I felt lonely. I wanted to let you know that I like you, which is why I invited you today." My confession turned out to be a little clumsy, but Sarah, seeing that we shared the same sentiments, blushed and burst out laughing, maybe to cover up her discomfort. Additionally, I couldn't resist laughing, and a positive vibe permeated the room. We began dating in earnest after that. I was offered a position at headquarters 3 years later, but I turned it down since I still wanted to concentrate on my work at the branch. Sarah and I are now strolling down a straight route at a leisurely pace, arm in arm. If you make my sister cry, I won't forgive you. Mia was clapping her hands in tears as we met with friends, family, and coworkers from both sides. Sarah, wearing a lovely dress, gave Mia a soft smile. Yes, we get married. We enjoyed our joy as we walked down the aisle. Sarah's slightly enlarged belly is home to a new life. Despite the gifts, Sarah and I are looking forward to the joy that lies ahead. Why are we even hiring a janitor like you? Isn't this event meant to be exclusive to the company? You don't belong here at all. This is not a place for underprivileged individuals like you. Rather, it is for elite professionals working for a first-class organization. Do you understand that? My kid works for a company that hosted a kickoff party at a posh hotel today. Employees' families were permitted to attend the celebration. And yet, this woman looked down on me because she thought I was a janitor. That's a terrible thing to say, isn't it? I tried to say, "Pardon me, but my kid works at this company." Splash. My head was covered in champagne. You have no right to respond as a janitor. It's likely that you have never even had champagne before. Think of today as your lucky day. You see my kindness. Even though I doubt you can notice the difference, feel free to savor the taste of luxury. What an eyesore you are. Get clean and get out of here. Funny. She chuckled cockily. She had no idea that this particular action would lead to her demise. Tom is my name. My age is 65. In the past, my parents co-owned a tiny coffee business. Regulars kept it running even if it wasn't a flourishing business. I heard my parents conversing in the living room one day when I was in high school. In retrospect, that event altered my life. What ought we to do? We may have to close the store if things continue as they are. Indeed, we won't be gaining additional clients anytime soon, in my opinion. Perhaps the moment has come. That coffee place was amazing. I was devastated to hear that. I wish to keep it from shutting down. How could I proceed? Perhaps we could continue to operate if we had more clients. I thought all night long, and I suggested something to my parents the following morning. Let's provide the regulars with discount coupons. They will have to give them to someone else because they are unable to use them themselves, even though they can put their name on the back. I'll distribute them. My parents laughed at my silly notion since they had all but given up. However, they decided to try it. Initially, a few new clients began to arrive. Word then got out. The place was flourishing before we realized it. My parents had to hire part-timers since they were unable to run the company on their own. We eventually established a second location close by. That one also performed well. We continued to grow and hire. It grew into a modest but prosperous chain, relieving my parents of their financial burden. I was relieved and returned to enjoying high school life. At the time, I didn't really have any goals or dreams. However, everything changed when I asked my parents if I wanted to attend college. I'd like to attend college since all of my friends are. Is that something you believe we can afford? What are you discussing? Who, in your opinion, enabled all of this success? It's under our control. Do as you please. Thank you so lot. It's all because of you. Hearing that made me very happy. I desired a position that would allow me to bring such joy to others. After much research, I made the decision to work as a business consultant. A consultancy firm engaged me. In order to identify issues and enhance performance, I would occasionally pretend to be a normal employee and other times to be a regular client. I consistently produced outcomes while working directly in the field. Companies eventually began calling me by name. In the industry, I gained some notoriety as Tom, the passionate consultant. Magazines and publishers asked me to write and do interviews, but I declined them all. Every business faces unique difficulties, and I wasn't sure I could adequately communicate that. Things seemed to be going great, but I did have one source of regret: my son, Kevin. I was so wrapped up in work that I barely spent time with my family. Dad, can we go somewhere together for once? Sorry, work's been hectic lately. Can't you at least take a day off? I can't right now. I made a commitment. I have to see it through. So that's it, huh? You don't care about family. From that day on, my high school-aged son hardly spoke to me. That's not true. I was working hard for the sake of my family too. I thought he'd understand someday. But even after he graduated college and started working, that distance remained. I wanted to talk to Kevin. Just have a normal conversation. Feeling stuck, I asked my wife for help. Honestly, he probably got that clumsiness from you. She was exasperated, but she arranged a dinner for the three of us. She told me to write Kevin a short letter and put my heart into it. It was supposed to be a surprise. Then came the family dinner. Now we have a surprise, my wife announced. I reached for the letter in my pocket, but she gently grabbed my arm and stopped me. Confused, I looked at her. Then Kevin pulled out a letter from his pocket and started reading. To Dad, I used to resent you for not being around, but I made it through college and lived a good life thanks to you. Thank you. She must have told him to write it. There was a bit of sarcasm in there, but it still made me happy. Now for the next surprise, she said, giving me a nod. I read my letter aloud to Kevin. I know I wasn't much of a father. I truly regret that. Still, I want you to know how much I care about you. Thank you for growing into such a fine man. When I finished, my wife spoke. And now, one last surprise. She pulled out her own letter and began to read. To Tom and Kevin. I bet both of you wrote clumsy letters. Let's skip the dramatic and just get along already. After she finished reading, Kevin let out a soft chuckle. What the heck, Mom? Wasn't this supposed to be a surprise for Dad? Wait a minute. I was told it was a surprise for Kevin. Ah, so you tricked both of us. Well, Dad really is clumsy after all. Seeing Kevin smile for the first time in a while made me so happy I almost cried. Kevin's just as clumsy, you know. Now, let's eat, my wife said with a smile as she started serving the food. After that day, I began inviting Kevin out from time to time. Kevin was now a full-fledged working adult. We were both busy, and it wasn't easy to find time. But getting to go out with Kevin once in a while became something I really looked forward to. Eventually, I turned 65 and retired. From now on, I plan to enjoy my time with my wife in peace. Kevin had been promoted to section chief. Lately, he was especially busy and often worked late. Once things settled down, we'd finally be able to spend more time together. Then one day, Kevin, whom I hadn't seen in a while, came to talk to me about a possible job. I was hesitant, but then, for the first time, Kevin bowed his head to me. Dad, please. I agreed to go to Kevin's company under one condition. That condition was that I would work there as a janitor. If I was going to do it, I wanted to do it properly. Actually, I have been planning to clean the whole house from top to bottom once I retired. It just turned out to be Kevin's company instead. I felt excited. About a week after I started working at Kevin's company, I was wiping the glass doors at the entrance around lunchtime when a woman spoke to me. "Excuse me, could you lend me something to wipe with?" Flashy outfit. Big earrings. She clearly wasn't an employee. Well, maybe she was just in a PCH. Sure, just a second. I pulled a handkerchief from my pocket. Without a word, she took it like it was the most natural thing in the world. And to my shock, started wiping her high heels with it. I stood there stunned. I'm going out for lunch with that hot new hire. I've got to look good, you know. I'm so excited. Then she tossed the used handkerchief onto the ground. Hey, wait. What? Got a problem? No. A janitor getting all uppity. I saw mud at the entrance, by the way. Isn't that your fault? Do your job properly. That's what lowlifes like you are paid for. Come to think of it, it had poured this morning. Someone must have tracked in mud on their shoes. Even so, wiping her heels with someone else's handkerchief and then just throwing it away. As I stood there in disbelief, she waved past me and raised her voice. Oh, over here. Come on, let's go. She linked arms with a man and walked off. How incredibly rude. I took a deep breath and went back to cleaning the glass. About a month later, the company president retired and a new president was appointed. They rented out a luxury hotel to hold a kickoff event. It was a big gathering to boost morale and bring everyone together. Families were invited too. Opportunities to dine in such a fancy hotel are few and far between. Well, might as well enjoy the meal. Everyone around, employees and their families, seemed to be having a good time with the same thought. Among them, a woman in a crimson dress stood out in particular. Wait a second. Is that the same woman from before? She was surrounded by a group of flabbers, soaking up the attention. Oh my, you're too much. People were buzzing around her with exaggerated praise. Must be exhausting for those around her. There's always someone like her wherever you go. Maybe it's just my old consulting habits kicking in, but I couldn't help noticing. Still, I should focus on enjoying the meal. My wife would be arriving soon. I decided to wait near the entrance of the venue. As I walked past the group, my eyes met those of the woman in the crimson dress. She marched straight toward me and spoke. You look familiar. Excuse me, but what is it you do again? I do cleaning work here at the company. Ah, I remember now. Oh, why is a janitor like you here? This is supposed to be an employee-only event, isn't it? You're way out of place. This is a gathering for top-tier professionals from a first-class company. This isn't a place for the likes of you. The rule clearly states that family members of employees can attend the kickoff. Even as a janitor, that shouldn't matter. And once again, her words were uncalled for. Excuse me, but my son works for this company. Don't lie. You just snuck in here, didn't you? What? Come on. Someone like you, looking that shabby. No way you're connected to this company. People like you drag down the company's reputation. Get out of here before I call security. What does she mean by the company's reputation? Does working for a company require a certain image? That's just wrong. Wrong. I had to say something. Ma'am, you talk about reputation, but don't you think your behavior as... Splash. Just as I started to respond, she suddenly threw her glass of champagne on me. It drenched my head and soaked my clothes. Champagne dripped from me onto the floor as I stood frozen in shock. A janitor like you talking back? How disrespectful. You've probably never even tasted champagne, have you? You poor fool. What a terrible thing to do. Still, I bowed my head. I'm sorry if I upset you. Excuse me. I didn't have time for someone like her. As I turned to walk away, she grabbed my arm. Hold it. You're a janitor, right? Clean this floor immediately. I'm sorry, but... What? Talking back again. I'm Susan, wife of HR Director Greg. One word from me, and your fate at this company is sealed. Then she leaned in and whispered in my ear. Your son works here, right? If you don't do as I say, he'll lose his job. Now kneel down like a proper janitor and start wiping. Everyone around stood by in silence. They must have been afraid of Susan. I didn't want to make a scene and cause trouble for Kevin. As I began to kneel before Susan, the speech of the president began. Unfortunately, our company is going through difficult times. It's with great regret that I stepped down without turning things around. However, to ensure this company's future, I'm appointing a capable new president and forming a powerful leadership team. That will be my final task. Now, please welcome our new president and chairman. The room erupted in applause, and stepping onto the stage as the new president was my son, Kevin. I'm Kevin, and I've been appointed as the new president. May I ask where the chairman is? Our new chairman is also my father. Tom, please come up to the stage. A murmur spread across the room. Wait, is that the Tom, the consultant, the famous one? This is my first time seeing him. Kevin's father. The last names do match. I turned to Susan and said, "Excuse me, Kevin is waiting for me," then walked toward the stage. Soaking wet, I stepped up on stage, and Kevin looked at me in surprise. "You're soaked. What happened?" "I just got the champagne fight started early," I said as I took the mic from Kevin. "I'm Tom, and I've accepted the position of chairman." I glanced over at Susan. Her eyes were wide open, and her face had turned pale. "As I take on this role, I want to make one thing clear," I said. "I am committed to restoring proper function within this company. Over the past few weeks, I've worked undercover as a janitor to investigate what's really happening here. In one department in particular, I witnessed high-performing employees being unjustly transferred. Others were being forced to entertain superiors under pressure from HR authority. Frankly, the list goes on. Sound familiar, Susan? Pouring champagne over the head of an employee's family member and discriminating against them based on their occupation. Do you not find that appalling?" All eyes in the room turned to Susan. Her face turned bright red, and she opened and closed her mouth, speechless. I addressed the room. A company is made up of people doing their jobs. If someone consistently acts out of line, the entire organization starts to rot. The priority is to remove that rot and create an environment where the company can operate properly. This is beyond the scope of a consultant's role. That's why I've accepted the powers of a chairman. I will do everything in my power to make this company a place where everyone can do their jobs, succeed, and feel secure. I'll do whatever it takes, and I ask for your support to protect this company and each and every one of you. I bowed deeply to the audience. After a short pause, the hall erupted into loud applause. And then, with her red dress trailing behind, Susan stormed toward the stage. She suddenly grabbed the mic from me and shouted, "Everyone listen to me. This is a conspiracy. A father and son takeover. They're going to turn you all into corporate slaves. It's ridiculous for a section chief to become president. My husband should have been president." Her voice rang so loud it made the mic screech. Everyone froze in shock at her outburst. Says the real slave driver. The heckle came from somewhere in the crowd. Susan screamed, "Who said that? Show yourself. I'll have you fired. Who was it? You? You?" She started pointing wildly, demanding names. Security rushed over. "Let go of me. Listen up, everyone. The president is my husband. He should be president." Even as she was being taken away, Susan kept shouting. The truth was, the president had originally intended to name Greg, Susan's husband, as his successor. Greg was Richard's cousin and had always been someone he trusted. But in recent years, Greg's behavior had deteriorated badly, and the company's performance followed suit. The president's long-standing trust in Greg clouded his judgment. Meanwhile, the one quietly holding the company together was none other than Kevin, who was section chief. After a few meetings, the president became convinced of Kevin's potential and asked him to become president. Kevin initially refused. "I can't be president. I'm still young, and I wouldn't have the support of senior staff. Besides, I've been hiding something from you. I'm in a serious relationship with your daughter, with marriage in mind." President Richard was stunned. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want my personal life to influence your decision," Kevin said, bowing deeply. "I see you're sincere and fair. I can trust you with my daughter, and with this company. It's selfish of me, but as your future father-in-law, I asked you to accept the role. It's for the good of the company." Moved by Richard's passion, Kevin finally agreed to become president. That's when the secret training began. After finishing his long days as section chief, he spent every night in the president's office, learning how to run the company. He got home late and was exhausted. Still, his sense of duty kept him going. Once he was up to speed, he began having in-depth discussions with Richard, day after day, late into the night. But even with all that effort, Kevin couldn't find a breakthrough. So he finally told Richard about me. "I'm the son of Tom, the passionate consultant. Maybe, just maybe, my father could help." Without hesitation, Richard bowed to Kevin. "Please ask for his advice. Beg him to help this company. I'll pay him from my own pocket if I must. My father's not the kind of man who works for money. Let's just explain the situation honestly and ask with sincerity. I hate to pull him out of retirement, but it's our only hope." That's how I got involved. Called into the president's office and briefed on the company's troubles, I agreed immediately. To understand what was happening inside, I asked to work freely, as a janitor. They gave me a uniform and cleaning supplies, and I got to work. I never imagined it would all lead to what happened at the kickoff event. After Kevin finished his speech as new president, I explained to him why I showed up soaking wet. He apologized, saying, "It's fine. If it helps the company, I'll endure anything." That was nothing. I almost lost my composure back there, but I kept that to myself. The next day, Greg came to the president's office to bow his head. Kevin looked at him with disappointment and asked, "I respected you from the moment I joined the company. How did it come to this?" Greg bowed deeply. "I had no excuse. Please discipline me as you see fit." His voice was heavy with remorse. Kevin raised his voice. "You were such an admirable person. What happened to you? I'm truly sorry. It's shameful. But please, let me explain." And so Greg began his confession. "My wife and I were overjoyed when I was promoted to head of HR. Of course they were. Being named a department head is a recognition of years of hard work. One day, I told my wife maybe becoming president isn't such a far-off dream. She said she'd support me all the way. It seems Susan started to change around that time. She formed a social club for the wives to gain influence and hosted events to get closer to powerful subordinates and department heads. That much was still acceptable. But then people started cozying up to her just for power, with nothing but flattery and praise. She gradually began wielding power as the HR director's wife, and eventually became addicted to it. By the time he realized, there was no turning back. No matter what he said, she insisted it was all for his sake. Even when he tried to stop her, he gave in to her desire to be the president's wife and ended up abusing his authority. In truth, she was always strong-willed and determined. That's what I had admired about her. She supported me for years, but now she's doing things like this." Greg bowed his head, his face twisted in anguish. "I'm prepared to resign. My wife made grave mistakes as a human being, but I'm the one who let it happen. And I failed the company too. I accept any punishment." His voice trembled, and his shoulders shook. There was no doubt. He was truly remorseful. Kevin furrowed his brows and clenched his jaw. In the heavy silence, I finally spoke. Greg, you'll be transferred. No title. No subordinates. You won't be involved in any of the company's core functions. It's a remote assignment. Frankly, a dead-end post. Still, I want you to prove your commitment by producing results there. Can you do that? Greg responded without hesitation. I humbly accept. There's company housing available. Will you be bringing your wife? If possible, yes. Wouldn't it be better to leave her here? The living conditions will be very different, and it may only make things harder for you. I'm sorry, but she's someone I once truly loved. I want to take the time to talk things through with her properly. I see. Fortunately, it's a quiet post. You'll have the time. Take it slow and talk things over. I'll issue the transfer order immediately. Greg expressed his gratitude and left the room. A heavy silence settled over the president's office. Kevin let out a deep sigh. Then, with frustration, he said to me, "He was such a good person." Kevin stared off into the distance. Yeah, I could tell. I had sensed that too, in the way Greg spoke. You wouldn't know this, Dad, but back in the day, he used to look out for me a lot. Took me to events, invited me to study sessions, even gave me business books he thought were good reads. I really looked up to him. I thought we cold. He stopped mid-sentence and covered his eyes with his right hand. I heard a sniffle. Drops hit the desk. I thought of the times I failed to be there as a father, and I couldn't find any words to comfort Kevin. I gently placed a hand on his shoulder. The love for family, doing what's right for the company. Both are important. But even the smallest rift, the slightest unraveling, can lead people to make mistakes. And unless those mistakes are corrected, someone will continue to suffer. When you can't see your own mistakes, or can't fix them, even if you do, it's okay to lean on someone else. I don't want to see anyone cry anymore. I will rebuild this company. This is my final mission. Hey. What's the big deal about getting in that way? You cannot do anything you want just because you are a foreigner. The scene takes place at my part-time job, a tavern. There's a big foreigner shouting. Around him, there is an impatient bustle of customers. Lily, a college student who is almost a teenager, is caught in the between. It looks like someone might start a fight at this rate. I was hesitant to step in for a second. They could discover the secret I've been keeping since I started working here if I did. When people learn about my secret past, they might all be devastated. However, all of my worries became unimportant when I saw the distraught Lily. I desired to assist her. I walked out of the kitchen and stood in front of the angry foreigner with that resolve. Max is my name. I've had trouble interacting with others since I was a small child. I just had trouble talking to people, regardless of their age or gender. This is how I felt since kindergarten. Books piqued my curiosity the most back then. I began by reading picture books before progressively developing an interest in novels. Naturally, I probably didn't understand more than half of the material at the time because many of the words were too complex for me. Nevertheless, I had a great time attempting to comprehend the characters' feelings and the situations. I was most happy during that procedure. It seemed sense, though, that my peers had little interest in that. They would remark, "I have no clue what Max is talking about," whenever I attempted to discuss it with them. On the other hand, I was unable to identify with the comics or cartoons they talked about. Since then, I've avoided social engagement as much as possible. However, life cannot be experienced alone. Seeing that I was still spending most of my time alone while being in college, my easygoing mother advised me to go out more and make at least one friend. At least find a job and travel more if that's too much. I understood what my mother was saying, of course, but I didn't want to socialize. Even a position where I could work on my own was something I was searching for. You know, you can't live your life alone. In fact, you might meet some people you truly click with if you accepted a part-time job or anything. My dad even took my mom's side. I discovered, with reluctance, that they were both conspiring to inform me of this. In light of the situation, I began searching for a part-time work immediately following graduation. Around that time, I was directed to a tavern by the sole senior in college who would engage with me. He asked, "If that's the case, want to try working here?" After I gave him the rundown. I therefore ended up working at the bar he suggested. My senior is the manager of that pub. It is not a part of a chain or anything. He claims that the menu reflects the establishment's age, which was passed down from his grandfather. It has some rips and wear. It has a distinct flavor that I truly enjoy. The manager would set things up with a laugh that left you wondering what his real goals were, either because he was being serious or because he didn't want to change anything. There were just 2 small booth spaces in the company, and there were a few counters and tables for seating. Additionally, the manager had other responsibilities and was rarely at the restaurant. Usually, he left the site to John, his assistant manager. I'm terribly annoyed with that person. My inability to cook keeps getting better since he continually assigns me challenging recipes. My remuneration does not, however, reflect this. "John," I responded, laughing as I hurriedly got the plates ready. He really was a good cook, as John himself would say. In addition to his efficiency, he had excellent seasoning, particularly in his omelette. You could almost hear it jiggling since it was so fluffy and wobbly. The regulars who visited the pub would almost certainly order the omelette made by John. There was another employee in the pub. The only female staff member was Lily, who worked part-time. Being a college student, she worked 3 times a week. Unlike me, she spoke brightly with everyone and had a dazzling smile. Regulars often commented, "You know, the reason I keep coming back here is because of Lily." Although I was grateful for the job, I wasn't good at customer service. Dealing with tipsy customers was particularly tough, and since I often couldn't communicate well with others, I was mainly relegated to the kitchen. The kitchen was John's territory. Despite him being faster on his own, he seemed to purposely delegate tasks to me. Thanks to that, my cooking skills improved rapidly. I've always had a passion for cooking. It's something I can quietly focus on by myself without needing conversation. Never did I think this trait of mine would be so useful here. Contrary to my expectations, this place gets quite a crowd. When I was first introduced to this gig and saw the somewhat old-fashioned establishment, I assumed not many folks would frequent it. Boy, was I wrong. This joint has an assortment of alcohols, from popular domestic brews to rare local spirits and even international liquors, all thanks to the manager's fondness for booze. I still wonder where he sources them from. The location is prime too. It's conveniently located near major highways and exits, with plenty of traffic passing by. A short stroll away, there's a residential area. We get all kinds of customers, from longtime regulars to college students fresh out of their club activities. The 3 of us mainly ran this always busy place. To think that it was managed by just 2 people before I came aboard is mind-boggling. Lily, though occasionally messing up orders, has many fans among the customers. "It's all right, kiddo," I'd hear the old man often say, stepping in to help out. John often grumbles, "Where's the manager? Goofing off now. Think I should deep fry him or something." But he's always cooking with a grin on his face. "John, this omelette is just out of this world." Lily's voice echoes from the dining area, to which he'd reply, "All right. I'll whip up another one for free on the house." Sure, it was a busy gig, but I look forward to every shift. Half a year flew by since I started. Every day was hectic, but it felt hundreds of times more fulfilling than before. I was getting more adept in the kitchen and could even anticipate what John needed without him asking. At times, I'd also help Lily out. Helping, in this context, meant delivering dishes to the tables closest to the kitchen. After closing up, the 4 of us would occasionally have drinks. The manager would bring out some fancy drink he wanted to try, offering everyone a glass. John, on the other hand, would quickly prepare some delicious snacks that paired perfectly with the drink. It's always typical for Lily to grumble while she drinks. Lily is in the literature department, majoring in classical literature. She wants to be a librarian in the future. Her words excited me indeed. Living surrounded by books sounds wonderful for me. Such days would be a luxury. Sadly, being in a science department, I can't get a librarian certification. When she gets tipsy, she starts talking nonstop about infamous stories of famous authors. You know I love Fitzgerald. Oh, I mean F. Scott Fitzgerald. But just for his looks. John sigh. How many times have I heard that Fitzgerald was a jerk? Right? John probably had heard these complaints way before I started working here. Not just him. Fitzgerald stalked Hemingway, and Hemingway had stalked Fitzgerald. So what you're saying is all we got from classic literature are stalkers. Aren't there any decent guys? The manager urged Lily to improve the image of classical literature. Well, Poe was always in debt, and Nabokov was known to love his alcohol to a fault. Lily, in her drunken state, couldn't help but lower the reputation of these literary figures. Even these famous guys were this bad, right? Men are just the worst in the world. What a radical statement. Though I thought so. Both the manager and John were like, why? All men are trash, trying to comfort her. It wasn't the first or second time Lily made such remarks. Whenever we had a drink after work, she would always bring up these authors as examples to stress how terrible men are. I have a feeling she might have had a bad experience with a guy in her past, but neither John nor the manager asked her for details, nor did they explain anything to me. I was curious, but I couldn't ask Lily directly. I was also surprised that I became interested in Lily's past. Before I knew it, I became intrigued by a coworker, which was quite unexpected for someone like me who generally isn't interested in others. In these 6 months, I silently applauded the growth in my feelings during my part-time job. There was something else I noticed. The manager seemed to be quite fond of Lily. I mean, he seemed to really like her, if you catch my drift. He was quite the caretaker, or perhaps just very attentive. Well, they are both of the right age, so there's nothing wrong with that. There shouldn't be an issue, but I can't help but watch their interactions. That's how my days went by. One day, as usual, the manager wasn't around, so the 3 of us were serving the customers. It was a typically busy day when something out of the ordinary happened. We had a foreign customer. Judging by looks might not be fair, but that customer was probably German. They were around 6'3", tall and extremely muscular. If they were to punch a guy like me, I reckon just one hit would shatter all my bones. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 of them. There were 6. I hadn't anticipated such big folks coming into such a tight space in the pub. Lily, taken aback, led them to the seating area. It got a bit crammed because of the other customers, but it couldn't be helped. The foreign customers seemed to understand the place was busy, so they didn't complain and just ordered. Their English was broken, but Lily managed to take the orders and safely return to the kitchen. Phew, I made sure to take that order very carefully. John joked, if you messed up, you'd probably get a whooping. At that comment, Lily double-checked the order slip and muttered, maybe I should ask again. Luckily, all the ordered dishes were served, and the foreign customers left looking satisfied. After that, customers kept pouring in without a break, cooking nonstop. I took a moment to look at the clock and realized it was almost closing time. I was pretty worn out. Peeking into the dining area, there were still some customers, but most seemed ready to leave or had finished their meals. Just as we were about to start cleaning up the kitchen, Lily's voice echoed into the kitchen. Rushing back into the restaurant with great speed was the foreigner who had dined earlier. Whether he was drunk or had simply rushed back, his face was flushed and easily visible even from the kitchen. Rushing past Lily, he headed straight for the booth they had occupied earlier. From inside, a voice exclaimed. "Who the heck is this guy?" That private booth was already occupied by other local customers. You can bet they were frightened when a flushed and imposing foreigner suddenly burst in while they were just having a drink and a bite. But those customers seemed a little tipsy and quite spirited. Hey, just because you're a foreigner doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. The foreigner was shouting back, but in German, so the locals had no clue what he was saying. What's he going on about? It was worse than a normal drunken brawl. Just as they seemed about to come to blows, Lily stepped in. Please wait. Everyone just calm down a bit. With a lady stepping in, things seemed to cool down a bit. However, the foreigner then began to interrogate Lily. He had been speaking in broken English earlier because he was calm, but now he was rapidly firing questions at Lily in accented German. Of course, Lily didn't understand what the customer was saying and was left bewildered, mumbling, well. John, who had been watching the situation from the kitchen, remarked, "This isn't good. I'll call the manager right away," and headed to the locker room. I thought I'd wait for the manager to come. Honestly, I could somewhat understand what that foreigner was saying, though I couldn't catch every word due to the distance. If I got closer and he spoke more calmly, I'd probably understand almost everything. But if I did that, it might ruin the life I've built up to now. I've just gotten used to this job at the pub, and I've been blessed with great coworkers. I couldn't just throw that all away. Just as I was thinking this, I caught Lily's eye. Her eyes were filled with tears, but she mouthed the words, "It's okay," to me. Seeing her like that, I acted before I even thought about it. I moved toward the space between the foreigner and Lily. I stepped in and spoke to the foreigner in German. For a moment, he seemed taken aback. However, once he realized I spoke German, he relayed his concerns very quickly. Understanding what he was saying, I turned to face Lily. Did this gentleman leave anything behind in this private room when he left earlier today? Lily looked puzzled for a moment, but then seemed to recall. Oh, there was something. She then brought a small black box wrapped in cloth from the kitchen. It was a pretty old-looking box. Upon seeing it, the foreigner exclaimed, "Oh," and grabbed it. Upon opening the box, an antique fountain pen emerged. "That's what he was looking for," I said. Upon hearing this, Lily replied, "Oh, I see. It looks quite old, but it seems to be well maintained. I thought it might be a cherished item, so I kept it stored carefully to ensure it wouldn't get scratched." It would have been nice if she remembered it right away, but if this large man raised his voice at her, she'd probably get too nervous to remember anything. According to the foreigner, this fountain pen was handed down from his grandfather. During wartime, his grandfather, who had been injured on the battlefield, was treated by an American soldier who was his enemy. Even after the war, he kept in touch with that American soldier, who then passed on this fountain pen to him. Since then, it has been handed down to his son and grandson and kept safely. Normally, it is kept in his bedroom at home, but he thought it would be fitting to bring it on his trip to America. He always carried it with him, but it must have fallen out of his bag at some point. He realized he had lost his fountain pen while walking with his friends after leaving this pub, so he hardly came back. The foreigner kept bowing and saying, "Thank you, I'm sorry," multiple times while this was happening. From the kitchen, John, with a brush in hand, came out, and from the entrance, the manager entered the dining area holding a broom. By the time they both arrived, the situation had been resolved. A muscular man was apologizing profusely to me, and the mood was light, with some clapping and cheering, probably due to a few drinks. Later that night, instead of our meal, the four of us had some snacks. Lily sat next to me and said, "Thank you so much for today. I was so scared. I thought I'd faint." She laughed, but as expected, she was leading up to a question. "But how did you know German? And not just a bit. You were fluent, right?" John chimed in after those words. "Exactly. You communicated just fine. Who the heck are you, Max? It was the worst-case scenario I had feared. I looked to the manager for help, but he was just smirking, taking small sips of his local beer. I thought it was time to spill the beans. Actually, after graduating from MIT, I decided to pursue my graduate studies there, aiming for a research position that I could handle alone. I was planning to go to Germany this September to further enhance my skills. I did all this just to work alone, something my folks criticized, but it was crucial for my life's plan. Until September, I thought I had time, perhaps for some reading at home. That's when my parents, as I mentioned earlier, told me to get a part-time job. That's how I ended up working at this pub, being invited by the manager, my college senior. Even now, I study German in my free time and can comfortably converse in German. I plan to further focus on mastering technical terms and such. I apologize for keeping all this a secret. I was afraid that if I told John and Lily that I graduated from MIT, they wouldn't treat me the same. I had recently discovered the joy of socializing, and the thought of our bond breaking was terrifying. But that doesn't excuse the fact that I was faking it. I deeply apologize for that. The two were stunned for a moment, but quickly snapped back. John said, spitting in disbelief, "Hold on. I have so many questions. But if Max's senior is the manager, does that mean the manager went to MIT? Wait, going to Germany in September? That's just 2 months away. Are you quitting, Max?" Lily approached me with fiery intensity. If she had shown that spirit earlier with the foreigner, I bet she could have handled it herself, but I only thought that and kept it to myself. By the way, the manager chimed in. This guy was top of his class in college. That unnecessary comment only stirred the pot, causing a bigger commotion among the two. Max, sure, I was surprised to hear you graduated from MIT, but that doesn't change the fact that we've worked together this long. I'll miss you in just 2 months. I want to become closer friends. From that day on, Lily seemed to warm up to me, and I, too, began to trust her more every day. Although gradually, I found myself laughing more. However, an issue arose just a week before the end of my part-time job. That day, as usual, the manager was out, and unfortunately, it was also John's day off. Luckily, the pub wasn't too busy, and Lily and I could manage just fine. During that time, a rough-looking middle-aged man walked in. Since Lily was busy delivering food, I handled the customer service. By now, I had become quite good at handling customers. When I showed him to a table, he asked me, "Is there a girl named Lily here?" I thought he was placing an order, but he was actually asking for a staff member. While I was trying to grasp what he meant, Lily came out of the kitchen with some dishes. Seeing her, the man shouted, "Lily, so this is where you've been hiding." Upon seeing the man's face, Lily froze in place. She had a look of sheer terror, not the surprise and fear she'd had with foreigners, but pure, unadulterated fear. She was so scared she couldn't move a muscle. The man tried to forcibly grab Lily's arm and drag her outside. I immediately stepped in. "What are you doing to our employee?" My voice was strong, but it was drowned out by his shouting. "Shut up. You should mind your own business. It's a parent's right to handle their child." Parent? Is he claiming to be Lily's father? Yet he doesn't seem to be lying. Just because you're a parent doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. What's wrong with you? My words annoyed him, and he kicked over a chair in the pub. Who the hell do you think you're talking to? Ignoring the other customers, he started punching the wall and throwing chairs, causing a ruckus. Screams erupted from the surrounding customers. This could lead to police involvement. Unfortunately, I'm your typical geek. I've never been in a fight my whole life. Being fluent in German doesn't help in this situation. Lily's in trouble right in front of me, and I'm helpless. Lily's father shouted at me, "What can a little punk like you do?" and took a swing, but I had no idea how to dodge, so I just closed my eyes, bracing for impact. I heard a dull thud, yet I felt no pain. Hesitantly, I opened my eyes and saw a wall in front of me. To be precise, it was a massive wall-like back. I remembered today in the back private room that the foreigner, Eric, was the fountain pen, who had come in with his buddies. Eric said in broken English, "Oh, nice. Is it my turn now?" Flexing his fist, Lily's father was taken aback for a moment by the sudden appearance of the imposing man, but he quickly regained his confidence and shouted, "What's with the foreigner stepping in?" Eric then began speaking in German, his voice calm, but with palpable anger. Lily's dad didn't understand a word the big foreigner in front of him was saying. To make matters worse, he soon realized he was surrounded by Eric's crew. He looked like a dwarf surrounded by giants. Eric asked me to translate. Just to clarify, I'll translate exactly what Eric is saying, I began. I serve as a police officer in Germany. It's a dangerous job, often confronting violent criminals. I can't arrest you here in the US, but turning you over to the local authorities would probably be easier than facing some of the criminals back home. If it comes to that, and you resist, be prepared to get hurt. You might need a few months to fully recover, or so he says. Soon after, the other foreigners started sharing their professions. I'm a boxer. I'm in the military. Each profession seemed tough. It appeared the confidence of the once bold father was shattered as he hastily and clumsily retreated. As he left, the surrounding customers showered Eric and his muscle crew with applause. Lily respectfully bowed and expressed her gratitude. She asked me to translate her feelings, but when I assured her that her gratitude was evident to Eric and the others without any translation, she let out a sigh of relief. Eric and his friends apparently traveled from Germany to the US to attend the wedding of an American friend. That friend, it seems, is also an American football player. Eric wanted to express his gratitude to Lily for carefully storing his cherished fountain pen, so he visited the pub once more before heading back to Germany. Of course, he added that he also enjoyed the food here. In particular, he loved the variety of liquor they had. He was grateful that they took care of his grandfather's cherished item and felt relieved that he could now reciprocate the kindness. He said it now felt easier to head back to Germany. Tears streaming down her face, Lily bowed deeply as she and I bid Eric and his group goodbye. After closing up, I quickly found the manager to fill them in on the day's events. He listened silently throughout the conversation, but when I finished, he slowly began to speak. What the manager revealed left me quite surprised. It turns out the manager was Lily's maternal uncle. He was 16 years younger than his sister, Lily's mother, making Lily his niece. The manager, a successful businessman, was running the pub as a hobby. Lily's parents had an arranged marriage. Apparently, arranged marriages are still common among the elite and prominent families. Even though they were married, her father had a short temper, easily getting physical at the slightest provocation. To top it off, he apparently had an affair. This became the final straw that led to their divorce. However, he vanished without paying any alimony or child support. Growing up, Lily had witnessed her father's behavior, leading her to develop a distrust toward men. Even though she led a comfortable life with her mother after the divorce, Lily still struggled with this mistrust. Her father's side of the family went into debt after their business venture failed. The reason why they tried to take Lily with them is unclear. The manager said they might have intended to demand money from Lily's maternal grandparents using Lily, or they might have tried to make money using her. I was simply taken aback by Lily's father. I couldn't believe that not only did he physically abuse his own daughter, hitting and kicking her, but he also had the audacity to ask for money. He was worse than any lowlife Lily ever complained about. But just because such a scumbag was driven off by a foreigner once doesn't mean he wouldn't come back a second or third time. When I expressed this concern, the manager said, "Don't worry. I'll handle it. It's my pub after all. I can't let you steal all the glory, right?" I could tell he was smirking even over the phone. Later, there was a news article about a company's CEO being arrested for tax evasion. In a corner of the newspaper, the article stated that the company had been struggling for a while and there were reports of unpaid wages to employees and illegal working hours. The article said, "Company CEO," but the man in the newspaper photo looked quite shabby. I wasn't sure if that man was Lily's father, as I honestly didn't remember his face. But since then, he never came looking for Lily. A few days before heading to Germany, I finished my last shift and was ready to go home. "Max, are you really leaving? Without you, this place won't run. It's probably on its last legs." John had sharp words for the manager. With tears streaming down her face, she tried to stop me. "When you come back to the States, you absolutely have to visit this place. I'll be waiting," said the ever-cheerful Lily. I replied, "Definitely," and then left the pub, lost in thought about the whirlwind past few months. My phone buzzed with a text notification. It was a message from Lily. "Can we keep in touch?" Seeing the message, I immediately turned around and ran back to the pub, which was now out of sight. When I arrived at the pub, Lily was already standing at the entrance. The manager said he was taking the day off so I could head home. "Lily," I said, looking puzzled through the pub's window. I could see the manager giving a thumbs up. Seeing that, I blurted out, "Lily, there's something I really want to talk about." I had been engrossed in my research in Germany. Every day was an exhilarating experience, surrounded by talented people. Something I couldn't have experienced in the US. It wasn't just about being smart. I was amazed by their creativity and perspective, which was entirely different from Americans. Plus, Germans expressed their opinions at an incredibly fast pace. To be honest, every day I was struggling to keep up with the conversation. I kept checking my watch. Only 5 minutes had passed since I last checked. Noticing this, a fellow researcher named Payne eased me. "Keep checking your watch like that, and your girlfriend's going to get jealous." The group around burst into laughter. "I get to see her today after so long." "I really need to go," I replied. Even as Payne and the others continued their banter, I made my way to the airport without another thought. While waiting for Lily at the airport, I found myself lost in thought. Relationships with others are indeed a mysterious thing. Reluctantly, I'd taken up a part-time job at the insistence of my parents. In just a few months, I'd gotten the hang of customer service. I'd lived a life avoiding interaction and had planned to continue doing so. Now here I was, being teased by colleagues and waiting for my girlfriend at the airport. I wonder how Eric had brought Lily and me closer. Was doing becoming his interpreter and even handling her overbearing father solidified our bond. It's incredible how small interactions can yield such significant results. Engaging with others truly enriches life. I realized, as I was having this thought, a familiar voice called out from behind, "Hey Max, sorry to keep you waiting."